If you have an unquenchable thirst to crush your bucket list, relentlessly pursue your dreams, and live life on your own terms, then turn up the volume and tune in. You're now listening to Zeph and Moses Blacksburg on the Year of Purpose podcast.
This episode of the Year of Purpose is brought to you by our brand new book, Life Rescripted. Find your purpose and design your dream life before the curtains close. If you want to be the first in line to receive a free digital copy from me, all you have to do is head on over to www.liferescriptedbook.com to find out more. Hey everyone, this is Zeph and Blacksburg on the Year of Purpose podcast, and today I'm joined by Alan Vaysberg. And Alan is a recalibration expert and creator of the Seamless Method, who facilitates people's transition from unfulfilled and stressed to doing what they love and being at peace. He speaks on life purpose, career change, work-life balance, and the recalibration process, and runs online programs helping people recalibrate their lives. And today he's joining us. How's it going, Alan?
Thanks for having me. It's going great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you here today. And, I'd love to just jump right into your story because I was reading a little bit online and you've got a very unique story. You came to the U.S. actually the year that I was born. So I'd love to kind of share what that experience was like for you and how that all came about.
Very true. So I came in 1989, as you've mentioned. I was 14 years old. My parents wanted to have a better life, specifically for me, and they came here at the age of 52 for themselves in order to give me an opportunity to have that life. I came from the former Soviet Union, from Ukraine, technically, which at that time was not its own country, it was just a state. It was a little interesting because I wanted to be a professional tennis player, I wanted to be an actor. And when I brought those things up to my parents, they said, no, you're going to get a real job. So I tried to figure out what that actually meant for me. And I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I decided not to go into law because I figured out very quickly that being a lawyer means looking at lots and lots of contract language, and I'm not that detail oriented. So I went into business, and then I went into IT because that's where the money was. And money I found until about 2012 when I decided that I've had enough of it and I was completely unfulfilled and needed to make a change. That's when I started my transition away from IT into doing what my heart desires, which is to help people. And that's where I became a recalibration expert.
So ultimately for you, money was not the solution, because I know that so many people think, if I make a successful business or if I make this much money, things are just going to work out for me, and it sounds like it really wasn't about the money.
It was not. And again, I certainly like money quite a bit. Money affords me a lifestyle that I like to live. I like to take tennis lessons. I like going to a nice health club or on vacations, or I have my kids go to any courses and classes that they want to take. So money is a very important part, but money was not the reason why I was doing it. And because I went into IT just for the money, I was missing that essential element. I didn't love it. And I was never as successful as I could have been, even though I built a business from nothing into $2.5 million a year revenue business. It could have been $20 million a year if I actually cared about what I was doing. But I liked the entrepreneurial aspect of it because I am an entrepreneur. That's not going to change. I didn't like the IT part. So I was never into it. And once you're never into it, you're never going to become professional. And if you're not a professional, you're always putting a block, energetic and professional, in order to be as successful as you can be. So for me, money was a part of the reason why I stayed so long, but it was not something that made me fulfilled at all.
And do you remember when that day happened where, I don't know, maybe you woke up or maybe you had an experience at work where that decision kind of started to pop up in your head? Because I know for me, when I left working for the corporate world, I remember, a very specific moment where I turned to a bunch of people and I was like, I'm just going to quit. And so I can remember that. I'm sure there was probably something for you there where you knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, for me, it was, for kind of, again, I left towards the end of 2012. But for a couple of years prior to that, and all throughout, I kept on hearing that voice in my head, like Ray Kinsella kept on hearing. He said, "If you build it, he will come." I kept hearing in my head, "Live your essence," and I knew what that meant, and I knew that I wasn't living it. So my point that you're referring to came when I got so fed up with introducing myself to people that I had to stop. Because when you introduce yourself to people, you have to say what you do for a living, and they ask you who you are, but they mean what you do. And I had to say that I'm an IT consultant, and everything within me, within my stomach, would churn and yell out, "No, that's not who you are. That's what you do for a living. You're an author, you're an actor, you're a spiritual teacher, you're all of these things, and you're doing none of them." So I promised at that moment to never introduce myself anymore as who I am not. And I was going to introduce myself as who I really was. So I started doing that, and I introduced myself to people, at work as an actor or as an author. And that became very interesting because people were like, "Oh, really? You're an actor? What have you been in?" And I said, "Nothing yet, but I'm an actor." And you have that look on their face that you can imagine of, "What the hell are you talking about, dude?" And same thing with an author, same thing with others. But for me, it was freeing. It was coming out of that proverbial closet. It was being truthful and authentic. And that's where my journey really started.
And so I really like what you said there, because I feel like this is a good tip for anyone who doesn't feel like they're doing, where life is leading them, is no longer identifying with what you do for a living, because it's not really who you are. And more often than not, it has nothing to do with the character or the type of person that you are. And just as you saw, people light up right away when they hear actor or anything else, really. You tell them I run an IT business, and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's nice," and it doesn't lead to a conversation after that, right, unless it's someone else in an IT field. So it's very interesting to hear that, as soon as you started to tell people what you really were, that it really lights up on everyone's face and everyone's interested in that.
Yeah, you have to be true to yourself. And it also brings up a question of, if you say that you're an actor, do you have to be a paid actor in order to be considered one? And the answer is no. You're just because you're not somebody who has published books yet, that doesn't mean that you're not an author. It's not about your professional choice. It's about who you are inside. And the rest is just marketing and sitting down, writing and releasing that book, or auditioning for a movie and making, both of which things I've done since. So it's really being true to who you are and then pursuing those.
Absolutely. And so that's something that I myself have gone through. I started to identify as being a storyteller, not necessarily a videographer. And a lot of things really started to click into place. And people started to understand me a little bit better, because they always wondered why my stories were so long and drawn out and detailed. And I guess that's my thing,
Do you have, sorry to interrupt, but I think I have the same issue. When I give a toast or when I give a speech, everybody is waiting for me to stop, because I have a hard time telling that story, or the poems that I write. I write poems, so usually when I give a speech, it's in the poetic form. So when I do that, it's long drawn out, because I'm going somewhere. It's not, "Hey, let's raise our toast because we love you so much and thanks." No, it's a lot more than that. So you have that too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I will tell friends, and I'll even identify in the middle of the conversation saying, "And I know that I'm talking a lot," and then I'll keep going, because I'm getting, much like you, I'm getting to a certain point. I'm trying to, get around to something at the end of it, and I want them to hear it. So I'm sure that happens a lot with poetry too.
It does, because my dad keeps on asking me, "Why can't you make something short?" And I did, just to appease him. I made very short poetic forms, which are only 4 lines, or 2 lines, or 8 lines. But most of my poems are 2 pages long, because it's somewhere that I'm going with it. For you, by the way, and something that I did, after I left, is I went into improv, and I went and I, did a year and a half, a little less than a year and a half, at Second City in Chicago. So as a storyteller, it was a difficult transition, because when you're doing improv, you have no time for a story. You have no time to write it. You have no time to think ahead or to go back in the past and try to figure out an angle. All you have to do is react to what's there. So I think for storytellers specifically, it was immensely important for me to go and do improv because it allowed me to be concise when I need to.
Very interesting. So it hasn't gotten rid of your ability
No.
to tell the long story, which is nice too, because I'd be afraid of that.
No, it kind of puts you in a different frame of mind. Your improv allows you to be very present. You have to be in the present moment. You cannot think. So you're basically taking that part of yourself away, and all you're doing is just being, and you're
Nice.
reacting, and you're adding to it. So you cannot script anything. That's not improv. That's scripted comedy, which is okay too, but that's not improv.
Very interesting. So I have this question: when you ultimately decided to leave the business,
Mm-hmm.
going from probably what was a much larger amount of income to
Nothing.
something that wasn't as guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I mean, is there fear in there that could have held you back?
On my end, no. On everybody else's, yes. Everybody else around me said that I was an idiot. Which it's interesting because you're flying on these wings of happiness, saying, "Hey, I'm doing something that is so authentic. I'm doing something that is so real and so brave." And you are completely optimistic at that point, and everybody around you wants to shoot you down, which is an interesting process, and that was probably the most difficult one. So from my perspective, no, because I had a certain amount of money in the bank. I knew what I accomplished, and I knew that I had a fallback plan. So for me, it was a matter of just going and doing it. And as I ended up doing, I started doing some part-time work to continue kind of funding my new expansion, which was something that I recommend to people. Don't just quit your job. Maybe transition into a part-time or consulting capacity. Keep utilizing that bridge that you spent a long time building. So money was not an issue for me. It was for everybody else. They said, "I cannot believe you're doing this. You spent years building this business. You're at the top of your success, and you're quitting cold turkey, and you're going to who knows what into basically no income." So it was a much bigger deal for everybody else.
And so that has to be a tough experience only because you're probably
Yeah.
really excited about everything that you're doing, and it's probably the biggest time for you to share what you're about to do with so many others,
You
and to have
can.
them all come back and shoot it down. I
Yep.
mean, that's probably why so many other people don't take a leap and don't actually step into their purpose and do what they're meant to do.
It's true, and this is not a great simile, but I kind of equate it in that way. When you're doing that, you're coming out of the closet. So I'm straight, but I have many gay friends, and that's probably the closest that I've come to coming out and feeling what they must have been feeling. When you are who you are, you don't care about what other people are saying. You have to be true to yourself. But then you start hearing from everybody else, why did you do this? Or who cares? Or don't tell anybody about it. And I had the same experience on my end. Don't tell anybody what you're doing. You're an actor. No, you're not an actor. When you make a movie, then you can tell other people that you're an actor. Or when you write that book, then you're an author. Before that, you're not. And right now, you just did this. And basically, you have to remove yourself from those voices. And you have to surround yourself with people who get it. And they are the people who you can share to. But that ability to share is an extremely important thing. And thank God for the internet, because you can find people on Facebook, you can find people on social media or around you in meetup groups that get it. And you need that support. Otherwise, you're going to go crazy.
Yeah, and so that's exactly where I was, and I'm sure
Mm.
that for many listening in, because I know that a lot of people that listen to the podcast are very interested in taking the leap to start their business, but
Yeah.
it's tough because everyone around you is going to do that. I have a very Jewish mother,
Mhm.
and so when I first said that I had quit my job, I was still living under her roof, and I thought that I was going to be out on the street by that afternoon. I mean, there was
Yeah.
just I thought that I was done for. And I think that it's really a matter of the successful ones are the ones who are going to be strong enough to, in a sense, ignore
Yeah.
most of your friends' warnings. And it's realize that, it's just because they care about you and they want to see you succeed. But the truth of it is the only way you're going to succeed is if you're staying true to yourself.
It's true. And what it taught me is that by me doing this, it essentially puts a mirror in front of everybody else and says, I'm doing it. What are you doing with your life? And nobody likes to do that. Nobody wants to look at that mirror because that's a hard conversation to have with yourself. So
Yeah.
instead, most people choose to criticize, and you have to tune that out. But you have to be open-minded enough where you're hearing people, because there's a lot of value in understanding what they're saying, because we tend to be myopic, especially at that point when we're quitting and when we're on our wings of happiness and we know that we're going to accomplish great things. We have a very focused perspective and we don't see any other perspectives. So hearing those is important. Letting them affect your flight is not.
Very good point there. So it's kind of like if I were to go to
Yeah.
my friend and say, I'm going to go stick my hand over this candle,
Hmm.
you can't stop me. If
Right.
they say it's going to be hot and burn you, well, yes, it is. So you have to make sure that you don't tune out that voice entirely, because
Right.
some of them are actually very reasonable warnings
Hmm.
from their own experiences, but many of them are their fears being projected on you. So being able
Exactly.
to sort through and figure out, which one is actually going to impact you, it's definitely a skill and it takes time to perfect.
It does, and just kind of again have that inner knowing and have that voice, but make sure that you realize that many of the advices that you're getting and many of the things that may be coming from your ego at that point are based on prior experience, based on the pre-programmed things of you do this, you get that result. Well, that's not necessarily the way it's going to be. You are the co-creator, and you're deciding how it's going to turn out. So it's this beautiful dance of all of these energies, and you're trying to find your way through them.
So you were saying that when you originally were considering leaving the business, you
Mhm.
kept hearing "living your essence" or "live in your essence." And tell me, what does that mean to you, and what ultimately did that turn into?
Well, to me, that means pursue your soul purpose. So live your essence is get in touch with who you really are, align with that, and then start living from it. That means career. That means the way you present yourself to the world. That means kind of remove the blocks that you put around yourself in order to fit in and be you. And that's what it meant. So for me, that meant allowing myself to pursue the things that I really cared about, which was I always wanted to try myself as an actor. So I went to Second City and I auditioned for a movie and I studied acting with different places until I realized that I love it. It is who I am, but it's not the core of who I am. It is an expression of what I am about. I am a very spiritual person and I have psychic and intuitive abilities. So I went and I studied with teachers in order to see if this is something that I want to do as a career. And I saw that as much as I love it, and it's always going to be a part of me, that's not my core either. So it took a while to kind of go between these different places and find that balance. And I was very careful to find the balance that expresses me fully, which means I needed to have something that is mainstream and esoteric instead of focusing on just one. I cannot be mainstream because that's not who I am. I talk to angels and root for the Cubs at the same time. And if I'm not doing something that expresses both of those pieces, I am not complete. And that took time. And living your essence for me meant that I'm here to inspire and to help others. So I always tell people that when you're trying to see who you are, explain yourself in one, two, or three words. And for me, that one word is inspirer. I am inspiring others, and that goes through different mediums, such as radio, such as writing articles that I write, having my online courses, speaking one-on-one. All of these things are just different mediums to inspire others.
Very interesting. And so, did you ever find that through this journey, you were picking up different skill sets or hobbies along the way? So,
Yeah.
for example, when I left working for Apple to start my video production company. One of the big things that I picked up was rowing, and I found that I'm extremely passionate about being in a single boat on the water, rowing off into the sunset, or training for competition and races.
Mhm.
And that has really kind of bled into every other aspect of my life. There's such a balance of being on the water. You learn a
Yeah.
lot from working on a crew team, and there's a lot of discipline there. Have you found that any of the skills that you took on really, seep into the other aspects of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, improv was a big, big thing. I did 2 years of radio where I hosted my own show. up until very recently, and improv was just a so natural application for radio because you're at a point where you have to flow with the conversation. You cannot script things out. You really have to be able to react. And then when I'm being interviewed, I'm asked questions from left field all the time. People are trying to kind of, playfully stump you. Because of my improv experience and because of who I am personality-wise, I could care less because I find that fun. So improv has been a huge change. Being in that present moment, not have to worry about what happened before or what's happening next. Just being in that present was a very, very big thing. And then spirituality, all of the things that I've learned allowed me to understand myself better. And it's always that backbone. So everything that I do has that integrated with it, because what I'm trying to help people, I'm removing blocks and I'm getting them to love themselves. It's many things that are kind of weaved into it, but those two I would say are the biggest ones. And then the final one is the entrepreneurship. I have done entrepreneurship before. I've built my businesses. I am not a person who works for corporate. I'm a person who builds companies. So that always will continue because that's who I am. And everything that I do, including my new business, is just building another business in a different space.
Right. And I feel like once you've done it before, you're not really as scared of doing it again, because no matter how many people say, that you can or can't do something, if you've already done something very similar, I feel like, when I left my job, I was like, all right, I know how to interview and get a job. So if I ever had to go back to this and had no choice, I know how to do this again. So that's the great part about, selling your business to move on or moving out of the business to create another one, is that you already know how to make one. So it's completely in your hands to just do it again.
It's true. Yeah.
And so you have the seamless method. I'm curious to hear a little bit about this.
That's, when we talked about balance, that's kind of it for me. It's one of the practical tools, because everything that I use, and I've noticed that many of the people on the esoteric spectrum are excellent in looking at life and figuring out the meaning behind it and what other great elements are from it, but they're not very practical. And I come from a very practical perspective. I come from the business side. So for me, it doesn't matter unless you can apply it to real life right now. So everything that I do, including the seamless method, is a very practical approach that kind of marries things and allows people to utilize it immediately. So seamless kind of came out of me trying to balance my life. I was very stressed out, unfulfilled, unhealthy, and just trying to fix that. I've noticed that the only times that I felt good were on vacation. And on vacation, you're unfortunately going twice a year. And I was not okay with feeling badly for 50 weeks out of the year and feeling great only for 2 weeks. But I started analyzing, what is it on vacation that actually works for me, that makes me feel good? Is it the lack of stress? No, certainly not, because I had 2 small kids and traveling to Mexico and back, and them always wanting to do things that we don't want them to do. So there were plenty of stresses. That was not the answer. Was it me eating better, for instance? And it certainly was not, because we would go to an all-inclusive resort and I'm eating twice as much as normal, and I'm not eating healthy things, ice cream every day. So it was not the food either. So I kind of started thinking, what is it? Because I'm getting more stress, I am eating like crap, and I'm still feeling awesome. So I noticed that it was the abundance of sleep. I was sleeping a lot more. I was being very active as opposed to a sedentary life. I was running, I was biking, I was swimming. I was always outside, so sunshine and fresh air. It was those things. And then I said, okay, well, what else can I do? Obviously, I should eat better. Can I do these things when I get back to work? Can I go outside during lunch, for instance? Yes, I can. So as I started putting those pieces together, that became seamless. And seamless now stands for 8 elements that all of us should do on a daily basis that are, no-brainers. We all know we're supposed to do that. We all know how important they are, and yet none of us do them. So seamless became a way to help people who know that they should be doing it, that are not doing it, to figure out how to actually do it. And it's an acronym that stands for those 8 elements.
Very nice. And would you mind sharing with us what
Not at
the
all. Yeah.
each letter stands for?
So seamless, S is for sleep, as I mentioned, one of the most important ones. E is for eating and drinking enough water. A is for activity or being active for at least 30 minutes a day. M is for meditation. L is for 3 types of love. Loving yourself is the first one, loving others is the second, and loving your day is the third. E is for expansion and growth. We have to go beyond our fears. We have to continue learning. The last 2 S's, one is for stress reduction, and the final one is for sunshine and fresh air.
Very nice. And I would be the
Mhm.
first person to tell you that sunshine is actually very important. I tend
Yeah.
to, in the winter time, as it gets cooler, spend more time
Mhm.
inside. And I know that it impacts my mood greatly.
Mhm.
So being able to get out and in the sunshine actually does magical things for the body. And I think that there's a
Yeah.
reason why sunlight is a big ingredient in making a plant grow.
Mhm.
And it has a lot to do with how we grow as well. So I'd be
Sure.
the first one to tell you that if you're not getting enough sunshine, definitely take a step outside for an hour or two, and
Mhm.
you'll see a big difference.
Or at least 20 minutes. That's the recommendation. Be outside for at least 20 minutes a day.
Very nice. So
Mhm.
this is a great way to remind us of things that we already know we should be doing, and I really like that. You make it so simple. It's no There's no secret, right? There is no key secret to how to live a great life
Mhm.
other than doing the things that we already know we're supposed to do, because most likely, more often than not, we're not doing all of them. So it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
And the funny thing is, and what I didn't realize when I kind of put this thing together for myself, is that all of these elements, as simple as they are completely flexible and require no investment. People can do them regardless of their age, their health, their income level. And if you do those things, the thing that shocked me in this case was that I looked at the top 10 health related killers in the United States, like cancer or Alzheimer's or kidney disease and all the other ones. And when I looked at the prevention methods, that's seamless. They're telling you to get more sleep. They're telling you to eat better. They're telling you to exercise. They're telling you to meditate. They're telling you to reduce your stress. And amazingly enough, these simple things, if we do them and we do them on a consistent basis, can help us lower stress, can help us lose weight and get into a better shape, can help us learn to love ourselves and improve our relationships and lower the risk of the top 10 health related killers in the US.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Exactly.
So, share with me just real quickly as we round this all off. If somebody were looking to really recalibrate their life and kind of hit that reset button, start over fresh,
Mhm.
what are some of the things that they should be looking to do right now?
Start with seamless, and you already know what the whole system is. Now if you choose to work with me, then we can actually help you install it and make sure that your these 8 elements become habits. And I have courses, I have one-on-one counseling. You can do that, but the system you already know. So start with seamless and start implementing those things throughout your day, because that will make a huge difference already. Once you do that, start asking yourself the question of why you're here, and then take that and transition and build a bridge from who you really are to the job that expresses that. That's the recalibration process from my perspective.
And I would definitely say that, you
Mm.
used a great word there, install. And I would
Mhm.
pull out the example of, about a week or two ago, we had to replace the kitchen sink faucet. And so my roommate and I thought, okay, we'll go to the store, we'll buy a new faucet, and within about half an hour, we'll have a new one in there. Well, I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but I'm no plumber. I have no
no.
experience in plumbing. I'm just a guy with a toolbox.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where it really came down to while we knew the part that we had to get,
Mhm.
the installation process is really something that you have to leave up to the professionals. And so I would
Yeah.
just say, for anyone listening, I really liked that you said install, because it really means that you have worked in your craft and in your profession, and that you are the person to help, make this happen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we do. By we, I said, me and all of the people who have done this already. What I was surprised with is I didn't expect the results to be so cool. We had 92% of people who participated that lowered their stress significantly. We had 64% of people who got into much better shape. We had 74 or 75% of people who balanced their lives. It's cool stuff. And it's simple. When I talked to people initially, they said, "Are you kidding? I'm already too busy. You want me to do 8 more things during my life?" And when I show them how to do that, that it only takes a few minutes extra a day, it's amazing what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Alan, what's the best way for people to check out more, from your online courses and to learn a little bit more about what you do?
I think the easiest would be to go to courses.alanvaysberg.com, or you can go to seamlessmethod.com.
Perfect. And is there anything else, any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with everyone listening in?
Yeah, aside from live your essence, for me, the wisdom comes in from listening to yourself. Spend some time every day. We can call it meditation, or we can call it just closing your eyes and listening in. But spend some time with yourself, because that's where all the answers lie.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for spending your morning with me, Alan, and
Pleasure.
appreciate having you here. And I'm sure we'll be talking very soon.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
This episode of The Year of Purpose is brought to you by our brand new book, Life Rescripted. Find your purpose and design your dream life before the curtains close. If you want to be the first in line to receive a free digital copy from me, all you have to do is head on over to www.liferescriptedbook.com to find out more. I've discovered what I think is the world's most effective process to design your path in life. It'd be a shame if I didn't share it. In Life Rescripted, you will discover the number one strategy for determining your life purpose and how you can start a new path today, the 5X life hack rule for accomplishing your dreams and designing your life on your own terms 5 times faster, the ultimate solution for fear and how you can leverage it right now to make this year your best year yet, and so much more. Reserve your spot in line to get a free copy at www.liferescriptedbook.com, and I will see you in the next episode.